That is a little snippet of a larger rhetoric that's emerged, not just around Keystone, but I think very interestingly in our politics, what's happened is that we've actually seen the right, particularly Republicans, become more reactionary on this issue, right? They've gone from this kind of this is a necessary evil to this is an affirmative good. Drill, baby, drill. Don't tell us what light bulbs to use. Steve Stockman tweeted the other day. He's a quite conservative Republican congressman from Texas. The best thing about the earth, this is his tweet, the best thing about the earth is that you could poke holes in it and oil and gas come out. And so the question is, if that's the direction the Republican caucus is moving, if you have Democrats, here voting for this resolution, then how do the politics on this shift, on Keystone particularly?
Well, I think they shift, and they have shifted, by the way, when people watch their television and see what happened in New Jersey and New York, when they hear scientists saying, you're going to see this every year, and it's going to be even worse. And people understand that. And when people see droughts in the Southwest, then when they see flooding, and they see heat waves all over the world, when people see that their lakes aren't freezing over, people say, you know what, I may not be a scientist. I know something is wrong. And I understand that for my kids and my grandchildren, we have got to do something about it. So I am not pessimistic about the future. I think with good organizations like 350.org, working with the grassroots, we can make the case not only that we got to cut greenhouse gas emissions, we can create millions of jobs.
Do you want to see the president not authorize the Keystone Pipeline?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Glenn, your senator was one of those Democrats that voted for that symbolic resolution. And I'm curious if this opens up a space for folks in the state of Arkansas to have a conversation with him about that.
I certainly think it's a good excuse to stop by. We've talked about it before. He's been a champion for it. But certainly Senator Pryor, as his father, David Pryor, when he was in the Senate, they both have a sign on their desk that says Arkansas first. And we look at what happened in Mayflower today, and we look at the kind of devastation that could come from a spill like this. This pipeline goes through Little Rock's water supply as well. This could be a devastating type thing. If Senator Pryor puts Arkansas first, he might reconsider this. I might also point out that our congressman from this district, a Republican by the name of Tim Griffin, has been a champion of this Keystone project as well. This is in his district. This spill is in his district. I want him to take a close look at this and see, is it worth a small amount of jobs for the environmental risk that's at stake? I don't think so. So if you look at the local politics, it makes a difference. But I totally agree with Senator Lay about Senator Sanders, about the environmental impact on a large scale as well. This Keystone Pipeline is bad news. We don't need it. It's going to shift the climate science in a way that we really can't afford.
One of the things that 350.org has done very effectively is to focus on the brass tacks issue of spills, right? The coalition that's been built in opposition at one point even included the Republican governor of Nebraska, includes a lot of ranchers. I want to show this stat because you talked about what we're dealing with here is some assessment of the risk, not just of climate, right, but just the basic risk of, is this stuff going to get in your backyard, in your subdivision? And this is data from the federal government's regulatory body that oversees pipelines, which I learned today is run out of the Department of Transportation. And these are oil spills from pipelines over the last 20 years, 1993 to 2012. And what you see is that there's not really any trend. I mean, it's not like you say, well, the technology is getting better. That does not indicate to me that the technology is getting any better.
The infrastructure for pipelines has basically been the same for the last 70 years. And the number of spills have basically been the same for the last 70 years. And this is just part of the business, and it's a bad part of the business.
And we have to do better, and we can do better. And I think what's been so interesting in this Keystone fight is it's brought climate change as an issue back into the national conversation. A whole movement has arisen over this issue. And, we're working with the Sierra Club and Glenn and others to try and see how we can make President Obama take this movement seriously.
But can you get the Tim Griffins of the world? This to me is the big question, right? If we're going to price carbon, if you have a fantastic bill, if you don't mind my saying that you co-sponsored, that would put a price on carbon. It's the gold standard bill on this policy area. Dan, I think you'd agree. Right?
No, I think in fact, I think that is the real way to get back at ExxonMobil. I think the only way that you...
Well, we're not doing this out of punitive desire.
But the only way that you get ExxonMobil to task is to take away the economic advantages of getting oil sands out of the ground from Canada. And that means you have to put a price on what it is to take Canadian out of the Athabasca, or to go into the Gulf of Mexico, or to go into somebody's backyard, or to go and get tight oil. And the way that you do that is you put a price on what it is in terms of the effects that it has on the environment. And once you do that, then it makes more sense for Exxon to, in fact, pursue gasoline from algae as opposed to gasoline from natural gas or gasoline from oil sands in Canada. And that's really where the rubber is going to meet the road.
Exactly.
It's economics.
Exactly. And I think the point has to be made that we now have the technology in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of the decreased price for solar panels, in terms of the growth of wind. Geothermal is growing all over the country, biomass. We now can do it. If there was a political will in the White House and in the Congress, we can transform the energy system. We can create millions of jobs. We could lead the world and be an exporter around the world of that type of technology. That's the future, not oil, and that's why the Keystone Pipeline should be defeated.
And
yeah, please.
We can't afford not to make that choice, in fact. And this is one of the most devastating projects on the entire planet. I mean, photos from space make the tar sands look like Mordor. And the scale of it is hard to comprehend. Every 3 days, enough oil is moved in Alberta to fill Yankee Stadium. We're talking about a tremendously significant project that we can stop if we focus on the pipeline.
My takeaway from this is that we should reach out to Congressman Tim Griffin tomorrow to ask about his reaction to this bill and whether it's changed his opinion on Keystone at all. And we should check back in on how this cleanup goes. In Kalamazoo, which is the most expensive on-ground oil spill in American history, took 2 years to open up the waterway. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, May Boeve, Executive Director of 350.org, Dan Dicker, President Merck Block, and Glenn Hooks, the Arkansas Sierra Club. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.